Welcome to the March in Line podcast. I'm Joe Lynch, head of go-to-market at Dandy. This show is all about peeling back the layers of how technology is revolutionizing dentistry, especially in partnership with DSOs and ambitious private practices. We want to give you the inside scoop on what actually goes on in the lab, the challenges we face, the advances we're making, and the stories from the front lines that matter most to doctors and patients. To truly change your perspective on what it means to build something that matters, you have to understand Dr. Khaleila Brannon, who chose to leave a traditional career path to tackle one of society's most ignored crises, proving that the principles of growth and scale can be used to restore human dignity. Dr. Brannon, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Joe.
Let me start. Most dentists go straight from undergrad to dental school, but you actually started with a degree in community and public health. I'm curious, what problem did you see in the world at that age that made you start with the system, not the patient?
I think probably even where I'm at currently at Healthcare for the Homeless, it was kind of embedded in me at a very early age about just like helping one another. I remember like when I was younger, we would go through the city and I would see people who were struggling with homelessness. And I'm just like wondering what happened? Like, how did you get here? You know, I go home to a bed every day and food. What are the ways that this happened in which you're in this situation? And when you really unpeel and peel back the layers of why someone might be experiencing homelessness, it tells a great story and kind of leads me back into public health, which is how can we change policies and how can we educate people? How can we promote health in different ways to help address some of these issues before we're in a space where someone is experiencing homelessness or any health condition for that matter. Mm-hmm.
And as you think about growing up and observing those stories and those people, as you went through school to study public health, did that system level view change the way you experienced dental school and even your early years as a clinician in a regular private practice?
Yeah, even before I attended dental school, I had the wonderful opportunity of working for a nonprofit called the Children's Oral Health Institute, which combined, I was finishing up undergrad and I was applying to dental school. So this is an organization that applied principles of public health and was, dental related as well. So I thought, wow, this is a great place to work. And I worked at that nonprofit for 2 years. So already going into dental school, that was the mindset. I did public health. I worked at a nonprofit. The Children's Oral Health Institute actually took oral health care products to inner city schools and also provided like a presentation to show you how to properly brush and floss your teeth. So already that's my background. Going into dental school, it was just, I wanted to be a part of all those type of organizations that promoted health in different ways and policy, things of that nature.
And while you were in school, how did that actually impact the day-to-day of your school years? Did you find yourself pulled towards those types of programs and organizations, or was it, I guess maybe more of a traditional dental school experience?
So traditional dental school experience, but I was, again, privileged to go to the University of Maryland School of Dentistry. During my time there, I kind of gravitated towards like pediatric populations, the geriatric populations, and there were special clinics where we could rotate through, special needs clinics. And then, of course, I actually got to do a clerkship, domestic violence clerkship, where we provided care for victims of domestic violence. So I think just for some reason in all those populations I just listed could be considered high risk. Children are high risk. Domestic violence victims are high risk patients. All of these people, it's not that I didn't want to see the regular patients, but that's where I gravitated towards.
And so then you graduate and you go into private practice. Tell me about those 7 years as a clinician. What were the key things that you learned, and how did that follow through to the type of care that you deliver today?
Yeah, so I love that I had a private practice experience first and then came into an FQHC space. It just gives you a different perspective. Depending on where you work or as a private practice dentist, your patients are used to a certain standard of care. They want a neck pillow. They want, to pick out their scent for the day or, different things. So bringing that kind of custom, making sure our patients here have this like really great experience. Dental is kind of scary to most. And so how can we make it better? You're going to pick out your music. We're going to get you a neck pillow. We try to have the best like oral health care goodie bag stuff to give our patients. So just like having that lens of like, I want them to have the best is kind of how that helped shape how I work or transition to an FQHC. But working as private practice, it was, it was fine. I enjoyed it, but I don't think that I was living in my purpose working in private practice. I did learn all of the skills so that I could be really confident dentist here over those 7 years. Yeah, so just refining my skills, getting better, going to CE courses, and learning helped me bring that to the FQHC.
And it sounds like maybe the largest takeaway was doing really great discovery with your patients, understanding what were the things that they needed to receive great care. Is there a particular patient, obviously not sharing any names, but where you really learn that the value of being a dentist was not just in the clinical treatment, but actually in resolving sort of the other situations around their care?
Maybe about a year ago, we had a patient who was a denture patient here, and she was actually seeing a different provider. And at times, it was just really hard getting through her impressions. She was kind of dozing off during the appointments. She just wasn't engaged. I think she got her denture back, and I think it just maybe the fit wasn't the best because they struggled to get the impression. And
Right.
so at that point, one of our dentists, she said, Dr. Brandon, could you help me take over this case? I'm just, not sure what to do here. So before I even took on the case, I had a meeting with the patient and her daughter to discuss what was going on and how we could move forward successfully. And that's when I learned that she was really struggling with the loss of a family member around that time when they were making the denture. And perhaps maybe she was self medicating and she wasn't showing up, her normal self. And she told me that. She said, I was just really, really struggling. So this is outside of dentistry. We're having a conversation now about the loss that she's experienced and how she's handling the loss. She was better at this time, at the time I was meeting with her, but we did offer, you need to speak with someone in our behavioral health department. And she declined at that time, but we did proceed on with the case. And there was a lot of times I got to get fairly close with this patient that we just talked about life. I let her just talk with me,
Sure.
get to know her and vent and share some of the things that she's been through. So, it's the dentistry part is the dentistry part, but it's this other connection of understanding the full picture of our patients, and especially our patients here at Healthcare for the Homeless and the complexities of their life. Their lives are not like our lives where we kind of everything's planned out and predictable. Their lives are dynamic, ever changing, tragic, and just need some understanding.
Yeah, it's for sure a very different situation. I think most listeners here are experiencing. How do you think about, as the dental director, how do you think about standardizing that and uh, coaching your teams to look beyond sort of just the dental treatment? How do you systematize that level of customer discovery and understanding?
My colleagues that I work with here, when they're hired and choose to work at Healthcare for the Homeless, they kind of have that kind of built in that they know that they're going to have times where they have to see past the dentistry, and maybe this patient just needs to have a conversation or a good cry, and maybe we need to reschedule the treatment. I think it's built in with someone who's even applying to work here. Aside from the dentistry, what can we do for you? One day we had a patient who had a boot on his foot, like a medical boot. And I was like, oh, what happened with your foot? And he was like, I just don't have shoes right now. And so that's why
Wow.
I'm wearing this. And so, okay, I'm like, let me pause for a second. We're going to take care of, I think he was just there for an exam. But then I'm like, okay, let me go see if there is some clothes in our like donation area where we can get you some shoes. Like that's kind of the more pressing thing at the moment. So yeah, we all know to like if our patients even mention I'm hungry, I haven't eaten, we're getting you some crackers, we're getting you an Ensure. We bought Ensure for our clinic just to give our patients. So we already know that we're looking at the bigger picture with our clients.
It's amazing. One of the things with the population that you serve is that they can be hesitant to share feedback or share areas where they need help.
Yeah.
And how do you get honest feedback from those types of patients? And I recognize again, these patients may be experiencing different circumstances than a traditional patient, but the skill is actually the same to elicit that type of feedback. How do you do it?
Building trust. Building trust, even from the very first meeting. If I'm the when the doctor doing the new patient exam, our assistants go over the medical history. It's a little different of a format than maybe private practice, but the doctors go over the medical history. But it's also a chance for us to really connect when we're just going over medical history. You ask questions. How did this happen? Wow, you had a surgery. Okay, what led up to that surgery? Okay, understood. Okay. So it's a great way to get a snapshot of your patient before you even start, but just building trust, making sure they trust your clinical judgment. um, Sometimes if patients are a little leery about, like, are you just giving me any kind of care because this is healthcare for the homeless, I always remind them that we're not paid by the procedures or the amount of procedures that we do, and that we have the truest form of treatment planning because money is not tied to it. It's truly us figuring out what is best for you with no other circumstances. We're not taking into consideration what insurance is saying. We're just taking into consideration what we can do and what resources we have here. And so just building that trust with our patients, though, overall is the key. And then they tend to open up. And the more visits we have and the more consistency we have, the more they open up and the more they share and the more they get comfortable.
It really is incredible work. I'm curious, is there a time or a specific outcome where you said, "Hey, this is actually working, right? The work that you are doing is having a psychological or social impact, not just the act of restoring, their oral health."
Yeah, I can think of a patient. He's one of my favorite patients, but when I met him, I think he needed a denture as well. I think he had been coming here before I was the director, and his case was a little tricky, meaning I think they wanted him really to see a prosthodontist at that point. Um, and I said, you know what, we're going to try to take on this case. I'm going to try, but please no promises. He was very leery, asked like a little bit of a worry word, like a worry word.
Yeah.
Like, are you sure? We have no other options. We can't afford a prosthodontist, so we're going to
Right.
try. It's just a denture. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Just a lot of getting him comfortable with me. I'm new. How many years have you been doing this? Just like trying to figure out if he would be a good match.
Building trust.
Yeah, building trust. And so, but anywho, he eventually worked with me. We got this beautiful denture, really lovely denture. We actually did a bridge on him and a crown on one side on the lower to stabilize the lower so he could do a partial. But he had a great result. Like his smile was really restored. And when he came to me, he was, like I said, a worry wart, but also he was very subconscious of his smile. He said, I don't really want to go out. I don't want to smile. He also was kind of guarded as well, I would describe him as. And so now, fast forward a year or so, when I see him in the waiting area or if he's coming in, he doesn't see me as often, but whenever he sees me, he is just so like bright and vibrant, and it's like not even the same person, confident.
Yeah.
And so
It's a whole
he's like a
person
different
change.
person. Yeah, and he loves his teeth, like he loves his dentures. And so yeah, so that's one of my favorite patients where it was just like worried, nervous, anxious, guarded, and then turning over to this vibrant, confident, happy patient.
This is an amazing story. So it sounds like this was maybe one of the earlier patients that you treated
Mhm.
after making the career switch. Um,
Yes.
what were those first few days on the job like at Healthcare for the Homeless versus your private practice?
Yeah. So I always like applaud my boss for hiring me because I didn't have a lot of like director experience
Yeah.
for this position. But I think perhaps maybe they saw something in me in which I could take on the role of the director role. But yeah, I didn't know what to expect. I'll be honest. I came in the first few days and I observed how they were currently operating. And I just took notes, like probably like 3 or 4 pages of notes of things that maybe could be more efficient or just all out, like just a major change altogether. Like for instance, they weren't seeing children when I first was hired. And, as I spoke earlier, that's one of those special populations that has a special place in my heart. Um,
Yes.
and we see, we have tons of children that come through healthcare for the homeless. So it was a disservice for us not to, at least try to see them, even if we're referring them out, but just at least doing their initial checks. So, just making this list of things that I wanted to change, wanted to revise, wanted to make more efficient. So that was my first couple of days were like, I still wasn't even in the clinic maybe for a month or so. And then I got into the clinic and started seeing patients, but I just got to collect information and see how do I want to change this. And that's where my degree in public and community health came in. It was just simple things like, if we're going to talk about denture care, let's make a guide for that so that,
Yes.
we're telling the patients, but we're also giving them the instructions for them to care for their denture. Making like even little like guides in the clinic to describe, it's a picture book I mean, not a picture, but a picture, like a diagram of what a crown looks like versus an extraction versus like different procedures. A lot of times we would say, oh, we're gonna do a root canal on your tooth. And we would describe all the things, go through the whole consent, and they'll say, you're gonna take my tooth out. And I'm like, no, 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 no,
No, no,
no.
no, no, no. Yeah.
So I realized, hey, there's a need that I'm not communicating well. Even after I feel like I did communicate well, but maybe something, a picture or a video that's readily available for us to use for patient education would be better. So these are the tweaks, finding the issues and then figuring out how to make it better for our clients, was like a big part of how it started.
What you're describing, it sounds like you had to change your whole framework from treating one patient to managing a whole system. And as part of that, you're designing SOPs, you're designing walkthroughs and guides for patients. But as we have other folks listening who are making that same transition from being a practicing individual dentist to leading a team of dentists, what was the hardest part of making that transition?
I would say just like, again, building a culture. I know when I first started here, the clinic was moving at maybe a slower pace. And so making these changes to change the actual culture of my team was probably the most challenging, and getting everybody on the same page as to how we're going to treat our patients the most effectively and efficiently in the clinic. But that would probably be the biggest challenge.
Did you have doctors or assistants who were hesitant to change? And if so, how did you manage through that?
Yes, I think when I first started, my boss sat me down and said, like, when a new manager is coming on, there's going to be people who are wanting to leave, people that will adapt, and that this is what you should already expect. And so that helped to set my expectations. So yeah, it was a little difficult at first. I think that we had a lot of turnover during that period of time, and I'm so grateful for the people that trusted me enough coming into that space that stayed. Obviously, like the doctor, and one of the hygienists. A lot of my supporting staff transitioned over time, though. But I'm grateful for the people that were here before me who trusted my leadership, and yeah. But navigating through the change was definitely a challenge. I think what helped keep me centered was just keeping focus on the mission. I felt like it was a gift to be in that space. I love feedback from my team, like, hey, we can do this better. But if it wasn't, at the end of the day, the goal didn't reflect taking care of our patients and our clients, and it was maybe for like selfish reasons, we wanted to just keep it patient centered. So that's, if we kept everything patient centered, that helped keep us all focused and aligned.
That's such a great answer, and it hits on a challenge that we often hear, which is okay. There's some staff turnover, and that's very normal in particular when going through periods of rapid change. One of the things that you mentioned is, part of the hiring process is to screen for empathy for the homeless population. The second part is, and as you've put your leadership style and stamp on the organization, is you wanted the clinic to move faster and adapt more rapidly to change. How are you screening new hires for that trait, the ability to move quickly and process change, and really while staying patient centric?
During the interview, we have pretty guided questions, but I'm looking for words like I can accept feedback, I can adapt to change, I'm a quick learner. But the open to feedback part is, I think, a crucial thing for me, especially if they mention it as something that they like. I learn from feedback. I learn from my
Yeah.
mistakes. Those type of people kind of stick out to me because I can actually really help coach and train you so that we are the most efficient way. The reason why in our clinic we have very certain ways that we do things is because of trial and error. Someone else did it a year ago, it didn't work out, or it caused some type of issue that we didn't, see coming. And then we made this change so that this doesn't happen again. It could be the simplest thing, like for instance, when we run our lines, there are different size holes, I guess, on the container. And so we put like red tape around it. Like this is the one to use that has the longest hole so that you can run the evac solution through. But it's like these small things because we were realizing that people were putting it on the other holes and it wasn't reaching the solution or there wasn't a straw there altogether and you're not running the lines correctly. So it's different things that, I need someone who can adapt to these situations, adapt to change, welcome feedback, and also give feedback because I didn't know that that situation was happening unless my assistant told me, "Hey, I've noticed people are using the evac solution wrong,"
Yeah.
and so we need to figure out a way to make that foolproof so that we making sure that we are running the lines correctly every time. So those are the people when I'm hiring. Those are the words and characteristics and soft skills that I'm looking for.
Do you have like a favorite interview question that you ask to screen for that?
Well, not for that. I'm going to just tell you
Okay.
my favorite interview question, which is
Yeah.
how do you handle conflict? That's
Okay.
my favorite one. It's asked in a different way, but that also just tells me a lot about a person, how you handle conflict. Do you shut down? Do you run to your manager for everything or your supervisor for everything? Do you pull the person aside? Do you guys come to a compromise? And so that question for me is just my favorite because it tells me everything I need to know about a person. Really, that question.
And when you look at growing the clinic's reach, so you're growing your staff, you're hiring, what's the single biggest operational bottleneck you need to solve right now?
I think there's still a shortage of DA, dental assistant candidates, and that can always just really hinder things right now. So, an X ray certified dental assistant is kind of hard to find at the moment. And I know the market is very competitive. Those are the things that I think are holding us back just a hair at the moment. A lot of my current DAs and sterilization techs, they are, and this is partially my fault too, is, they're going to do other things. We encourage them to keep learning. We give professional development here at Healthcare for the Homeless. So people are going to take classes. People are going to hygiene school. People are going to dental school. So I have a built-in turnover, but still just getting those candidates in the door is a little bit challenging at the moment. Just not a great pool of candidates at the time.
That makes sense, and we know that to be a common challenge, actually nationwide,
Yeah.
as there's just a shortage of high skilled talent.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about the growth model. It's different in private practice. We would call it revenue.
Yeah.
In your world, it's funding.
Yeah.
Tell me about the business model of healthcare for homeless.
So, our dental clinic receives both public and private funds. Some of the public funds are tied to seeing certain populations of patients or referring a certain amount of patients to specialty care. It's a lot of different avenues as to or a lot of different ways as to how they measure with our public funds. We have a lot of private donors as well that just give freely because they believe in the cause. So, how we manage our, we're not working off of production, but we do consider utilization and how many appointments we complete is important to us. And so, how do we maximize utilization in this clinic? How do we maximize unique clients in this clinic? Those are things that are markers that our public donors or public funders are looking at.
When you're working with those donors or foundations, how do you ask for funds? What does the pitch look like?
So luckily for me, I don't have to do that, which I'm very
Okay.
grateful for. We have a lovely gifts and development department. They are so supportive of our dental clinic and all the work that we do. So they find these donors that give graciously to our clinic. One that I just want to specifically highlight is called the Batty Foundation.
Okay.
And they are a wonderful donor that has given money to healthcare for the homeless for years. And they cover all of our like denture services for us, like dentures, like the invoices.
So the Batty Foundation covers the cost of dentures. Is there a key metric that they're looking for as they continue to provide support to healthcare for the homeless? Is it number of patients? What does that look like? What does success look like for them?
I think they're meeting us where we are. So even when I first started this position, we were probably doing less dentures. I think they're thrilled that we're providing more dentures. We have since hired another dentist. We have a system now with the digital workflow where we're able to do them faster. And so I think they're just happy that we are able to provide this critical service to our very vulnerable patients, and have been for years. And I think they're just like, wow, you guys are doing more. That's great. Maybe we'll give a little bit more. And so they've just been working with us. And yeah, they have committed over the years that they are going to fund dentures for the clients here. I believe we're one of the few places or only places in Maryland that provide no cost dentures to our clients.
We were looking that up, and that's correct,
Yeah.
which is an amazing stat. You mentioned dentures being faster. Tell me about the impact that speed has on the population for you.
A lot of times, people experiencing homelessness, I said earlier, they have dynamic lives. Maybe homelessness has this, you can define homelessness in different ways. It could be someone sleeping on a couch at a friend's house. It could be someone who is sleeping in a tent under a bridge. It could be someone who is about to be evicted. Those are all ways that we can define homelessness or being unstably housed. And so, with that in mind, where you are today might not be where you are in 2 months. And so just making sure that we can get these dentures to our clients in a very fast pace, it helps. When we had our previous lab that we were using, our local lab, and even a further away lab at one point, it was taking about 5 to 6 months to get dentures completed for patients, and that was just a lot of time. I remember going through, when I first got there, going through the cases and seeing how old some of them are. Abandoned cases, we just have rims. We don't have, just we haven't seen them in years. And so now with this faster model and switching over to digital, we can keep up with our patients a little bit better.
And so it's both, it's the speed and turnaround time because the patients may not come back. And so getting it in as few appointments as possible just actually increases the case completion rate.
It does. It increases the case completion rate, patient satisfaction. You'd have patients come in like, I have to wait. We would explain that it's going to take months to get your denture. I have to wait that long for dentures. And so now it's like, no, it's only going to take a couple of months. You'll have your dentures. And so patient satisfaction, speedier completion rate, less appointments, less
Yeah.
transportation, which is expensive for someone who's experiencing homelessness. So we're
Right.
getting it done in, 2 or 3 appointments versus 5 appointments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what's next. What's the next major frontier for the dental program?
I made a very long list of goals in 2025 or 2026, but I want to get our clinic spaces a little bit more stable. We did open one additional community site in 2025, and we just opened another community site in 2026 in March. And so just making sure they're stable, well-staffed, and able to provide comprehensive care at both locations and work seamlessly. So that's what the goal is for right now, just keeping them stable. Our main clinic in downtown Baltimore is pretty efficient. Working on staffing and being really creative with staffing and staffing shortages. One of the ways that I tackled the shortage of dental assistants or supporting staff was engaging with college students who are interested in the dental field or interested in becoming dentists specifically. So these are people who are highly engaged, college educated, and they're going through the application cycle, and they want to learn and they want to be there. And so they have been an asset to our clinic. We actually call them like our clinical learners, and so they've been awesome. So trying to still deal with this shortage has been a challenge. Another thing that we're trying to do now is be an externship site for certain dental assistant programs in schools. We currently have an extern now, and hopefully that will transition into her taking on a full-time role as well.
And so it's exploring creative ways to solve the staffing gap.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You started in private practice. You transitioned into a dental director role at a nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
For someone listening who wants a career with impact but didn't know where to start, where would you recommend that they take their first practical step?
Trying to seek out FQHCs, seeing if they're hiring a dentist. Coming in as a dentist, working at FQHC, and maybe working your way into a director or leadership role is a pretty good plan. But yeah, FQHCs. Also attending some of these national conferences like NNOHA. Also I believe there's a public health dentistry convention that they have, or conference they have every year as well. But starting to explore public health dentistry, you don't have to have your specialty yet, but just exploring it. And also doing your public health dentistry specialty is also a great start. Or even getting your master's in public health. So all of these avenues to start to explore different career options if private practice is not fulfilling you.
Knowing what you know now, what do you think, or what do you wish everyone knew about the root causes of homelessness and the patient population that you believe that we could all carry forward?
That's a great question. I would say that, and this is kind of my mindset, is that we're always on the side closer to homelessness than I would say being like a billionaire or a millionaire. And so we're one bad decision, one mistake away from that. It could happen to any of us. And so the other thing I want to stress is that these patients that we are privileged to serve here at Healthcare for the Homeless have to be some of the most kind and sweet and appreciative, just wonderful patients. Can you imagine someone who is experiencing homelessness who is, after you do work on them, they're like, let me buy you lunch, or I use my last bit of money to buy you this small trinket. But so kind, so compassionate, is nothing like I've experienced before. So I just want to make sure everybody knows that about our patients here.
That's a lovely reflection. Dr. Brannon, this has been great, and it's a different episode than we normally record, and it's certainly a different patient population. But I really want to thank you for coming on and sharing your story and the story of the patients and population that you serve. The work you're doing matters, and we're rooting for you. Before we wrap, where can people find you and support the dental program?
Healthcare for the Homeless Maryland has visibility on Instagram and Facebook. I'm not a big social media person myself, so I just have like a Facebook page, but you can always send me a message on Facebook. But yeah, please support Healthcare for the Homeless. Every November we have a Giving Tuesday where people do pledge money for our program. It could be like, a set of dentures for our patients, donate $500. Cleaning for our patients, donate $100. So please support Giving Tuesday. It's around the time of Black Friday and all those other fun days, Giving Tuesday. That's one way to definitely support our program.
Awesome. We'll look over there. That's it for today's episode of The Margin Line. I'm Joe Lynch, head of go-to-market at Dandy. You can find us at meetdandy.com.